everybody and welcome to our DRP Weekly number 3. Lots of news today about our movement, and first, on behalf of all the DRP committee, I would like to wish you a very happy new year. 2011 has ended with a thrilling event in Leinster Gardens. You know, this event was facing an economy in crisis, with John Bunzel from Simple, with our friends from the Occupy movement, and of course with our leader James Parker. Lots of fresh and new ideas have been evoked by our speakers and the numerous attendants in the room. Let's watch a very interesting report by Kieran Zago, and Mike Jenkins.
Facing an economy in crisis. This conference started with an introduction of James Parker about the hierarchy between humans and institutions.
And we think it's time that the people become the masters, and our institutions, governments, banks, are the slaves. We've got it all wrong. And the Occupy movement, we fully support the Occupy movement. You know, we fully support the ethos and what they've developed through the process. But what the democratic reform movement is about the next stage of implementation and negotiation. The question is how can we make that transition from being a movement that is separate from the ordinary people's lives towards actually implementing global change.
Then Philippe Brun talked about the dictatorship of rating agencies, their impact on the choices of the governments all around the world, and the need for European governments to avoid technocracy.
When he was here in London, Charles de Gaulle surely didn't expect his successors to destroy with such consciousness his work. Just to remember, Standard & Poor's gave to Lehman Brothers its best mark in September 2008, just one day before Lehman went bankrupt. These same rating agencies downgraded Tunisia to punish the Arab Spring and revolution. In Italy, the new Mario Monti's government is composed of 15 technocrats. None of them have been ever elected in their lives. We, the European countries, have a common fear: decline. We have a common project: progress, equality, technical improvements, environmental respect. And the best of it, the right to choose and to understand politics. This is democracy.
John Bunzel concentrated on the link between governments and markets.
Instead of creating money themselves, governments borrow money on the international markets, which sounds like a very strange thing because, you know, in times gone by, the kings and the queens would mint their own money. So why are governments borrowing money on international markets? Nobody seems to ever ask that question. And in fact, probably only about 3% of real money is actually minted anymore. The remaining 97% is created out of thin air by the commercial banks. So that's one problem.
Finally, some members of Occupy LA6 informed us about their movement.
How can we go about actually mobilizing people in such a way that we can get these ideas, which of course are sensible and of course loads of people when they come across them would agree with, how can we turn those into a politically potent force? And I absolutely agree with the Krishnamurti quote that we need to understand a problem to get rid of it, and that in fact in understanding the problem we can create the transformation we need to see, but for that to happen we need to understand how our culture is separated head and heart, and another way of putting that is thought and action. And this cult of opinion thing that I'm talking about is a system whereby we're encouraged to have our opinions but basically keep them behind closed doors.
As you saw it, this event was such a great success that a new one will take place in a few weeks about the Tobin tax. A very tough subject, of course, because the French government decided to implement this tax nationally. Just connect to the Democratic Reform Network on Facebook and Twitter, or sign up to our newsletter for more information. On the internet now, let's have a look at the new website of the Democratic Reform Movement, hand-coded by our most prominent members. And the next online parliament, of course, with the help of David Woods from the Virtual Parliament organization. Democracy is one of today's buzzwords. When people say they stand for it, others say, of course we agree. Simply, in the last 20 years we've seen the dissolution of the Soviet Union and democratization in Eastern Europe, Latin America, East and Southeast Asia, as well as several Central Asian and African countries. We are now seeing the rise of e-democracy and major pro-democracy movements across the Arab world. And yet today, democratization seems unstoppable, and this topic has much inspired members of our movement. Why democratic reform? This is the title of this new collective book directed by Robert Badison, DRP founder. This book will be available in your bookshops in a few months. This is the end of DRP Weekly. See you next week for a new DRP Weekly with Jean Eveling, our national treasurer that we like very much. See you next week. Bye bye.